have endured, but countless other Americans who will never have the kind of platform that we've given to them suffered the same kind of un-American violence and violation of basic rights. I've been talking this morning in the hearing, so I'm not going to talk much right now. I really want to give you the opportunity to hear from Leo and Javier and Miramar. But let me just say, their courage and strength in coming forward is so important. The Secretary of Homeland Security owed them better than she gave this morning. Her evasive, unresponsive answers, her refusal to acknowledge her responsibility and to commit to changing or reforming the brutal, unconscionable practices of her agency is not only regrettable, it is unforgivable. And I might just say the last set of questions that I asked about the memo prepared by the acting director of ICE, which in effect instructs agents to violate the Fourth Amendment. She wouldn't say that they were going to change those policy and practices. She wouldn't disown the memo. She wouldn't apologize to these individuals. She essentially had no response when I asked her, what would you say to them? What would you say to them? And wasn't it wrong to deny medical treatment, to go into private property without a warrant, without consent, without any cause other than somebody looks Mexican? These kind of practices need to be denounced by her and by others in this administration rather than condoning and encouraging shooting innocent people, brutalizing them in the way that they have. So let me first call on Leo, if you would say a few words.
Hello, everyone. I love America. This is not who we are. We must arise. I want justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Well done. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for pulling us together, for your leadership in committee and beyond. And I too want to thank Leo and Javier and Marimar for their courage. Them being willing to be here today, not just before you all at this moment, but to sit in the hearing earlier today. Let's put that in context. What this administration has done to go after media organizations, too many that have bent to his will. What this administration has done to go after law firms that have bent to his will. This administration has gone after universities who have entered into settlement agreements, changing their practices because of the ego of this president. But not these three individuals. I'm not saying it's not a scary time in our country, but they're the best examples of we cannot relent. We cannot shy away. We cannot be silent. We need to continue to stand up and to speak up for ourselves, for our neighbors, for our family members, for our communities, for our countries, for our civil liberties, and for our constitutional rights. So I want to thank the three of you for your courage. I think most of you saw the hearing this morning. Sadly, is what we expected, similar to the State of the Union last week. A lot of lies, a lot of misrepresentations, a lot of evading the truth that's impacting so many American families. Americans across the country have been seeing it for the better part of a year. The violence, the cruelty, the out-of-control ICE and CBP agents that aren't just going after the worst of the worst. They keep saying that they are, but the fact of the matter is they're not. Their own numbers show that less than 14% of the people in ICE custody have a prior arrest or conviction for a violent offense in the past. That is not justice, that's injustice. We've seen the visuals of the detentions and arrests and how they've gone about it. What I think the country is increasingly becoming aware of is the deplorable conditions in so many detention facilities, not just in California, but across the country. It should not take a court order to say you have to meet minimum basic standards in these detention facilities, things like drinking water, basic nutritional food, access to timely medical attention. It's fundamental. But at every turn, Kristi Noem has failed in her leadership, not just in terms of immigration enforcement, but her participation in threatening the future of our elections. I called out in the hearing today that when she visited Arizona just a couple of weeks ago, they were very blatant in suggesting that they want to change the rules to make sure that only the right people vote so that the right leaders are elected. That explains a lot. It's not just DHS, it's the Department of Justice, it's the White House, and so many more. She was anything but responsive and informative in her responses to questions of members of the committee. And I think from Ranking Member Durbin to every single member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, between calling out her lies, their lack of compliance with the law, their violation of civil rights, their mismanagement of the agency, their loss in more than 4,500 immigration-related cases alone since October, she's in over her head. She's not qualified, never was qualified, never should have been confirmed to the position. The last thing to do, the respectful thing to do, would be to resign, or the president should fire her. And short of that, have the House vote to impeach Kristi Noem.
Thanks, Alex. Senator Schiff.
Senator Blumenthal, thank you for bringing us together today, and I want to join in thanking Leo and Javier and Marimar for the courage that you've demonstrated in coming forward, your willingness to speak out. I think we are all deeply disturbed by how you have been treated by the U.S. government. It is just appalling to me that we would treat human beings this way and that you had to endure what you have. We saw today in the hearing that the Secretary of Homeland Security takes no responsibility for the treatment of U.S. citizens or immigrants. She used every opportunity to deflect responsibility. She could not acknowledge the mistakes of her agency. All the people that have been victimized in our cities by these mass sweeps, the indiscriminate arrests of citizens and non-citizens alike. As Javier will describe, he was arrested at his workplace. He offered to show identification. He's a U.S. citizen, but was jailed for days. We see this routinely. People picked up just on the basis of how they look or how well they speak the language or what their job is as a part of this indiscriminate immigration policy by the Secretary. When excessive force is used, there is no repercussion. There is no independent investigation, and independent state and local investigators are pushed from the scene, or you have cases where evidence is driven 1,000 miles away rather than preserved at the scene or elsewhere to maintain the chain of custody. I served as an assistant U.S. attorney for years. This is not how you conduct an investigation. To have a secretary who, in the immediate aftermath of a tragic shooting of a U.S. citizen and repeatedly, without any basis, makes the false, sensational claim that these are domestic terrorists, and then doesn't have the character to admit her mistake is just reprehensible. And none of this instills any confidence in the country that this agency is being run appropriately or where there's an excessive use of force against citizens or non-citizens, that those cases are being properly investigated. So we have an agency run amok. It is bad enough what they're doing to U.S. citizens and immigrants, but they are also wasting vast amounts of taxpayer resources on sweetheart contracts for friends of friends or family of friends. We discussed at length, in particular, this $220 million boondoggle, this PR campaign largely featuring Kristi Noem on horseback and Kristi Noem in a helicopter and Kristi Noem here or Kristi Noem there. Basically $220 million PR campaign at taxpayer expense, which she acknowledged was approved by the president, although was very reluctant to do so. That contract went to a company that didn't exist 11 days before it got the contract. The bulk of that funding, $143 million, went to a subcontractor that just happens to be run by the husband of her press person at the time, someone also who ran her campaign as the governor of South Dakota. And she has the audacity to suggest that this was all a mere coincidence, just, I guess, a happy coincidence that friends and family of friends ended up with such a massively lucrative, apparently no-bid contract. We released a report just a few days ago from my office that outlines $144 million of expenditures by ICE on weapons and non-lethal supplies. Just in the last year, that's a 360% increase in expenditures on weapons by ICE and a doubling of expenditures on weapons and other related equipment by Customs and Border Protection. This is an agency awash in resources and run amok that is desperately in need of oversight and reining in. And Senator Blumenthal, I thank you for all you're doing. In particular, I want to thank you for the efforts you're doing to fight these illegal ICE raids inside people's homes. Administrative warrant is not a warrant to invade someone's home. It does not survive challenge under the Fourth Amendment, and for the Secretary today to say that it does and that the case law supports it is simply false. In the case she's citing, the court never even reached that issue. A judicial warrant is necessary under the Fourth Amendment, and ICE agents are operating without judicial warrants to invade people's homes, and we have to put a stop to that. And I thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for your efforts on that as well. And I now would like to introduce Javier to come to the mic and share his story with us as well.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Javier. I'm a U.S. citizen. I live in East LA and also in Tijuana. I got stopped multiple times already, crossing the border. They pretty much asked me, like, where were you born or why were you arrested? I even had to carry out my taxes, even my birth certificate. And just in case they say it's not original or anything like that, I have the one that's certified. So just in case. But the thing is that I never used to carry this around. And since everything happened, I don't feel safe being in my own country now. I feel safer being in Mexico than here. And it's sad, to be honest. It's traumatizing. Whatever happened to me really hurts me and also hurts me with my family. As soon as I got out from jail, I went to pick up my kids. And my daughter literally points out and tells me, look, Daddy, that's where ICE got you. So I don't want to be remembered with my kids, saying, you're famous because of this or this happened to you. So it's just, sorry, it hurts me. It hurts me as a father, and my kids are Mexican as well, or Latinos, so it could happen to them as well. So I just hope that, they try to fix this, or at least, have Ms. Kristi Noem at least resign or quit. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marimar Martinez. On October 4 of 2025, I got shot by Border Patrol agents. I'm not gonna talk about my case because it's gonna be a long night. So yeah, I know majority of you heard about my story. I'm still here. I'm advocating for my community and those that don't even have a voice. But we heard Secretary Noem testify to the rape. She testified under oath. She said she didn't know about my case. The evidence we released in the case demonstrated otherwise. Like you seen the text messages, right? Either former Border Patrol Bobino, Charles Exum, or Noem are lying. They lie about my case. They lied about the facts. Because even Charles Exum was told he had full support of Secretary Kristi Noem regarding of my shooting. So she knew about my story. So for her to be there, that she was gonna investigate and look into the case more, she's lying because she knew for a fact what happened to me. I think it's even worse that Noem truly does not know about the facts of my case. She is the leader of DHS, and one of her agents attempted to kill me, a USA citizen, on my streets of Chicago. It was reported. It was nationwide. I'm sorry. It just gets to me, right? I'm mad, right? I know for a fact that she reads the newspaper. It's been all over the news. I know she's informed about my shooting. For the leader of DHS not to know about my shooting of a USA citizen by one of her agents is more alarming than her agency refusal to investigate these unlawful actions. Secretary Noem to have I want Secretary Noem to have FBI agent investigate Border Patrol agents Charles Exum for his attempted execution of me. I am confident the evidence will demonstrate his shooting was unlawfully and violated. DHS used the force of policies. Finally, I want to close by saying that despite this entire ordeal, I love this country. I know the despicable actions of Greg Bobino and Charles Exum do not represent all law enforcement. The United States is and will always be a country of immigrants, built by immigrants. We are a country of love and tolerance. This is the land of the free, the land of the opportunity, and the great nation that people around the world aspire to call home. I will go back to my Montessori school and continue to teach my kids about the great promises and possibilities that our country truly represents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marimar. Thank you, Marimar. None of these individuals, as you know, was from Minneapolis. And the point is, Minneapolis has been happening all across the country. We are all Minneapolis. We are all the kinds of abuses that you have heard so eloquently from these individuals. And again, I want to thank them for being here today, just as I do all who have participated in our hearings so far. Happy to take any questions. Yeah.
So we've heard lots of calls for Kristi Noem to step down, resign, be impeached. At some point, do you see there being a future of a successful relationship between Congress and Noem to get a success after all of this?
Based on today's hearing, she has to chart a completely different path than we saw. She has to acknowledge the wrongdoing and the need for reform, which she has utterly failed to do. As Marimar just told you, she denied knowing about such an egregious and gaping injustice that has been all over the news. We had a hearing on it just several weeks ago. I cannot believe she doesn't know about some investigation of the agent who did these texts. So it defies belief that she could give answers like she did today and still hope to have a constructive relationship with the Congress. But more important than her relationship with Congress is her relationship to the American people. I think she's completely lost confidence. She has no credibility left, not only because of today, but a pattern of evasiveness and unresponsiveness and avoidance of responsibility. Lisa.
Thanks, Senator. Two questions. First thing, you've held several public forums about U.S. citizens being detained and arrested, and so was there anything that you heard today from Secretary Noem or didn't hear that might be part of future inquiries or investigations? Like that?
Very definitely, she has provided more questions than answers to some of the key questions about the policies of ICE. For example, what is she going to do about the ongoing instruction to ICE agents that they should break down doors and bash into homes in violation of the Fourth Amendment? What is she going to do about ICE agents going to the polls illegally? She refused to disclaim that possibility. And what is she going to do about the corruption in her agency? Senator Schiff has described just one instance of it, but this agency is rife with corruption. And the amounts of money going into it are staggering. $170 billion going to ICE and CBP, ongoing funding. There needs to be much stronger scrutiny and oversight, and the Inspector General of that agency isn't providing it. So there are a lot more questions that deserve answers. I wish that the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation, the majority, were willing to be involved, but we're going to do it on our side.
Okay.
And Alex?
Just add one thing. It's not just oversight on DHS and Secretary Noem. I mean, overall, Congress has a role to play in holding the administration accountable. So from the beginning, we've been calling upon our Republican colleagues to step up to their oath of office and their responsibility. They refused to when it comes to Trump. When it comes to Noem, I saw some glimmers of hope today if you followed Senator Kennedy's line of questioning. And I hope everybody heard Senator Tillis's comments and line of questioning. So if Republican members of Congress keep moving in that direction as a co-equal branch of government to hold Secretary Noem and other parts of the administration accountable, then that would be a good thing, but only time will tell.
And I'm hopeful that there'll be more whistleblowers. You know, Ryan Schwank came forward, and I'm hope there'll be more.
And just a quick second part, during the end of your exchange, Secretary Noem did bring up, specifically mentioned a murder case in Connecticut that she wanted you to respond to, so I was hoping you could respond to that or anything you know about that particular case.
I'm not going to respond to her assertion that may or may not be true. I'm going to look into exactly what the facts are. Yeah.
Senator, there was a long stretch of time where DHS maintained that there were 0 American citizens detained. Obviously, the number is more than 0 if there's 3 here in this room today. Is there any way to keep track of how many U.S. citizens are being detained and how many have been up to now?
Well, I entered into the record a February 6th letter from her to me acknowledging 38. That covered only a limited amount of time. There have been reports of 170 or more in the public press. The agency is not counting, and we have no statistics because we don't have access to that information. But she certainly does. And that's another area where I intend to explore.
Just add on that. The problem with her leadership of that agency, and we see this with the FBI under Kash Patel and others, is you frankly can't believe a word they say. If she's going to go out there in the immediate aftermath of the shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy and call them domestic terrorists, how can you accept any representation made by her office? So if they say no citizens have been arrested, we know that's not true. In her testimony today, she said 1,500 known or suspected terrorists have been arrested by DHS. Do we have any idea where that number comes from? Are these terrorists along the lines of their claims of Renee Good and Alex Preddy? How are we supposed to evaluate that? One thing they didn't include in their numbers is how many of those known or suspected terrorists were actually prosecuted for terrorism-related crimes, or any of them even convicted. As a former prosecutor, that's a much more meaningful number than just throwing out 1,500 people who they, given their very broad definition of terrorism now, who they are suggesting that they've arrested. We have seen in other agencies where you put out statistics that are accurate, like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and you get fired if those numbers aren't pleasing to the president. So the problem is we have agencies that we can't trust, under leadership that we can't trust, and by and large Republican colleagues who are not willing to insist on answers to questions. And that means there is really no effective oversight going on. That will remain the case until either there's a change among our Republican colleagues or a change in the majority in Congress. But right now, I think the only thing we can be confident of is the fact that, as the judge, one of the judges in Minnesota said, that hundreds of court orders are being violated. We can be confident, I think, that there is just enormous waste, fraud, and abuse within the department itself that we will only learn about later, that we will have to try to claw back from these sweetheart deals that are trying to expend money hand over fist. I mean, it does seem to be an environment at DHS right now, as in so many other agencies of our government, where there is such an extraordinary amount of money, and it is just grab what you can while you can get it. While no one is looking, just grab what you can while nobody can catch you. But there will come a time where there will be accountability. If it's not now, it will be, I hope, very soon.
You know, the only footnote I would add is that the mantra seems to be grab as much as you can get, even when people are looking, because the arrogance is just staggering.
In light of potential sleeper cells now here in the U.S. and the necessity to ensure the safety of American citizens, can you just explain how continuing to keep DHS shut down unfunded is beneficial?
Sleeper cells? I'm not sure I understood the question.
In light of the Iran attack, sleeper cells,
Yeah.
people who were let in under Biden, the millions of aliens let in. Can you explain, how the American people aren't protected and DHS is shut down?
Well, I haven't seen evidence of sleeper cells, and certainly no evidence that sleeper cells are related to recent immigrants under the Biden administration or the Trump administration. There certainly is a need for vigilance about our national security, no question, in light of what is happening in the Middle East. And we have to be watchful, not overly fearful. There needs to be investigation by the FBI. We have a domestic terrorism unit there, as well as in the Department of Justice. And in the Department of Homeland Security, the Homeland Security Investigations Unit. And unfortunately, reports are that resources devoted to those units have been turned instead to immigration issues. So I would say the answer to your question is that the abundant resources already allocated to DHS should be focused on our national security and investigation of any possible threats. Okay, thank you all. And again, thanks to Javier, Marimar, and Leo. Thank you for being here today.